morning, Sister Angela Susalla.
Good morning.
You must be a fresh face here on campus.
Oh, I've been here since a year ago, October. So,
And where do you reside?
in Weber, third floor in that neighborhood, and it's very, very nice.
Wonderful. You get a lot of exercise during the day, don't you?
Quite a bit of exercise, back and forth, and I try to walk a little bit more just for exercise.
Well, you've been all over the United States as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure you've been in the Florida chapter and in the Mid-Atlantic chapter, and now you're in the Adrian Crossroads chapter, correct?
Well, actually, I was in the Mid-Atlantic. I was never in the Florida.
Never in
Well, St. Rose of Lima, I guess I was when it was a province. And then when we had the chapters, we joined the Mid-Atlantic chapter.
Well, I know you've been to South Carolina, to Florida, to West Virginia, to the Bahamas, to Tennessee, and sometime in Canada. And above all, I've been waiting to spell this, M-I-S-S-I-P-P. M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I.
Right.
So tell me, how did you land in Mississippi?
Well, I was in the spirituality and ministry program in Toronto with Sister Margaret Brennan, and we would get these newsletters saying openings around the country, and I knew I was only going to be there for the 1 year, so I was looking for a new ministry, and I saw that Mississippi, the Sacred Heart Fathers in Walls, had a mission, and they actually had 2 openings. They had an opening with a house, you know, like for senior citizen. And then they had an opening in social services. Now, I really hadn't had social services, but I thought I might try it. So I also had a place in Appalachia working with domestic violence people. And so I thought, well, I'll look at both of those. And I looked at Appalachia first, and I felt, well, I don't know. We'll see after I go to Mississippi. Well, when I went to Tunica, I thought I was in Gone with the Wind, because we had mansions, and right next to a mansion we had shacks. And so we visited some of the elderly folks that the sisters were working, and they were the Tiffin, Ohio sisters that were there. And 2 of them were leaving to go to another place in Mississippi to start a mission, and they needed 2 people. And so when I saw the elderly, especially Susie said, well, are you going to stay? And I said, well, I think so. I don't know how long. She said, well, I hope you stay longer than the rest.
She was a Tunica resident, is
She was a resident. She was in her 90s and lived in one of those shacks. I call them shacks because basically that's what they were. Very poor housing, no water on the inside of the house, spigot outside where they would get their water. And when I said I would go there, I thought I was going for 3 years. Instead, it was 31 years.
31.
31 years,
Oh, amazing.
Yes. And at the time that I went there, Tunica was the poorest county in the United States. That was in 1983. 5,600 of the residents out of 9,000 were on food stamps. So it was really quite a shock to me to see that. And we basically worked with the elderly and would go to their homes, help clean their houses, and take their clothes to the laundry and shop and do their laundry, shop for them. And we did that for a while, and then we wanted systemic change. So what we said was, we'll ask the people what would they like us to do, as we do today more than we did in the olden days, I think. But we did go have a meeting, and there were 3 things that they wanted. One was jobs, the second one was housing, and the third was some kind of program for teenagers who were pregnant, because there were a lot of pregnant teenagers. And basically, they would tell us, what else is there to do? Some man would come and offer them a sundae or some kind of treat, and
For a
have
dollar.
sex with them. Yeah, right. And so a lot of teens. Our first class that we had, we called it Project Good Mother. We had 24 young women from the ages of 15 to 18. And it was kind of sad, but we kept that program. It's still going on, and many of the young girls did a lot with their lives.
What
Didn't
about
have a baby the second year in high school, and that was a success.
That was part of the program.
That was
probably.
it, right?
Yeah.
Stay in school and don't have another child while you're in high school.
Well, what did you do about the housing?
Well, about the housing, initially there wasn't much we could do about it because people didn't have jobs. And so we, in 1992, we started a new program. We applied for 501c3, and then we went ahead and got that, and were able to get a loan and grants, and we built 21 houses for families that were low income or very low income. And those first 21 houses, we were able to help them with $20,000 grant. Actually, it was $25,000. And refrigerators and stoves. And at that time, we had the casinos. And the Grand Casino, and I know it was because of, one year it was because of Karen Sock, who was a graduate of Holben Dominican High, who helped with the refrigerators because she was the manager of Harris. And so she did that. The year before, there was a young Catholic man, and he helped us get stoves and refrigerators. So it helped that first 21 families, and their mortgages were like $150 or $200. The most was $300. And they are still paying on those homes, and all of them are in there except two of them that died, and we sold the houses to another a family with low income. And after that, we did self-help housing. And
What's that?
That's similar to Habitat, where the families help build the houses, and they get a debate on their, they don't have to pay a down payment, and they can go ahead, and those are also inexpensive mortgages. But we built 40 of those homes. So altogether, we built 61 homes for the families with low and very low incomes.
Were you there to hammer the nails?
Sometimes, with the self-help ones, because we would go, and one summer it rained, but then it was dry. So Sister Gus, who was Sister Mary James Griffin, a Cincinnati sister, who I live with, she and I would go out and water 21 houses. I tell you.
You would what?
Water the grass.
Oh my.
For 21 houses in the morning. Early morning we would go and do that. So that the trees that we had planted and the bushes that were planted would not die.
Oh my.
So in the grass.
Did the jobs come their way? Because that's housing and jobs.
When the casinos came in 1992.
You say casinos, more than one?
4 of them initially, and they had to be on the river, Mississippi River. And one was called Splash, and I forget, Lady Luck and something else.
But that provided
4 of them, and they were in boats. They had to be the gambling section had to be on a boat. You could have a hotel on land, but it had to be in the water. So
that provided the jobs then.
That provided jobs.
Wonderful.
And what it also did was provided very much, the people began to feel like they were someone, because now they could get their hair done. The women, you'd see them walking down the street so proud they had a job. Before that, they were on food stamps and welfare. The highest employers were the school and welfare before the casinos came.
Oh my.
Because they had to have so many people working at welfare.
Is there someone there from Tunica that you keep in your heart continuously?
Well, the sisters first.
Yes.
We call it Gus. And Nancy, she's also a Cincinnati.
You keep in touch with them, I
Nancy
presume.
Hubany. In fact, I just talked to them last night about their chapter. And they said they had a wonderful chapter. And Tony
Harris.
is their new
Prioress.
And they're very happy with that. And yeah,
What about
and then-
among the people there?
Well,
who-
Barbara was our receptionist and then was taught with me and now with Nancy in the Project Good Mother. And Freddy Brandon. And
Freddy who?
Brandon.
Yes.
And Freddy was our bus driver. 25 years he drove the bus because transportation was also a need for the elderly especially. And he would go out and pick up the ladies and that was the first time I think that we really had whites and blacks, people of color on the bus. And because there were a couple of women who were low income, were also on food stamps. And he would pick them up, and they had a wonderful time together. It was a good example of integration because I have to say Tunica is still quite a bit racist. And it was really when I first went there. It has gotten better, thank God, but it is still.
Is Freddie like your brother now?
He is my brother.
Yes.
He is. And he retired the May before I retired. And like in June, he found out he had cancer of the lungs. He's doing well right now, but he still takes chemo every so often.
This desire of yours to serve the poor or the needy or the oppressed must have come from somewhere in your early years.
My mother, I think. My mother was, she always helped people. My dad told her one day, "You're going to put us in the poorhouse," because everybody who comes to the door, you do something for them. But she also was kind. My uncle was in a sanatorium with TB, and when he was released from there because he was well, his wife decided that he couldn't come home because he'd contaminate the children. My mother took him in. And my aunt, who was divorced, and in those days, if you remember, you're excommunicated from the church. And I'm sorry to say that my grandmother and grandfather felt that way, so my mother took her in. So, it came, and my mother was just kind to everybody.
Well, you must have had Adrian Dominican somewhere along the line. I mean, how did that link up? You're from Michigan, aren't you?
I am. I entered from Rochester, Michigan. And you recall that we used to have missions and
like parish missions?
Parish mission. But I should say that I went to St. Benedict's in Highland Park in Detroit there, and had Sisters of St. Joseph.
Yes.
And I did want to be just like Sister Christine, my 6th grade teacher, who was like Ingrid Bergman.
The bells of St. Mary's.
So I wanted to be like that. And then when we moved to Rochester because my dad's job changed. And so I went to Rochester High from the 10th to the 12th grade. And so I kind of forgot about going to the convent. I was having too much fun. Yes. And then I made this mission as a senior. And when I went to confession, it was Father Gilbert, OMI. And I said to him, did everything, and then came out and said to my girlfriend, Kay, I need to talk to Father. Will you wait a minute? So I went back in. But the thing that made me go back in was that Father said to me, now remember, you're God's girlfriend. And I just went, wow. How could that be?
How could that be?
How could that be?
Go figure that out now.
I went back in to talk to him about it. And then I told him I wanted to be a sister. And he said, can I talk to you outside the confessional? And of course I said yes. And then when we were talking, he asked me what kind of a sister I would like to be. And I said, Sister of St. Joseph. And he said, you want to wear black? And I said, well, that's the only sisters I know. And he said he knew IHM, Dominicans, and St. Joseph because they were all teaching at the high school in Port Huron. And Marilyn Foster was going to be going to this vocation day. And he said, I'd like you to go, and you could meet the other two congregations. Well, it poured rain. It was stormy. My dad would not drive, and I, of course, would not drive. And so Father Gilbert arranged for me to meet Sister Arnold. And Sister Arnold called me because he knew her in Macon, Georgia. Anyway, she called me, and I told her this. I thought I was going to a different community.
Because of her
drawl was so thick.
Was she at Dominican at that time?
She was at Dominican High. And so we arranged to go on Ascension Thursday. The Weber sisters were celebrating one of them was celebrating a Jubilee, and so they were free.
The Webers, as in Sister Mother Genevieve Weber?
It must have been.
Because I think there were three.
Well, I think it was the Webers. That's what I recall.
So here you are at the Dominican High Convent.
High Convent, and talking to them.
And you joined them for a meal, I'm sure.
Well, I didn't join them because, we couldn't eat with the sisters at that time. But they arranged to have a meal for me, and Sister Arnold sat with me for a while. But before she came, she said, now we're having chicken livers. And I said, chicken liver? I had never eaten those before in my life. And I thought, anyway, when she saw how I reacted, we've got something else too for you. So that was nice. And then Sister Mary Alice came out and sat with me while Sister Arnold ate.
She was the principal, wasn't she? Or probably superior?
Both. I think she was both. I don't recall that. But anyway, I wrote out my application right that day.
You mean they had it in their briefcase?
Well, I said I'd like to join them. And so Sister Arnold brought it out. Well, she showed me what I needed to do, and then she helped me get some of my clothes, and went home and got in the car with my dad, and I said, I'm going to be a sister. He says, you're not. I said, yes, I am.
And they wear white.
And they wear white. Right.
How did your mother react?
My mother knew I was going there for that to see, and see, when I was small, when I started thinking about being a sister, she said, don't pray to be a sister. She said, say 3 Hail Marys every night before you go to bed to know what God is asking of you. And whatever vocation you choose, that'll be the right one. And my mother was a wise woman.
Yes, yes.
When I entered, she said, now, if you're lonesome, you can't come home. But if you really don't like it and you don't see it as a fit, you are welcome to come home at any time. And I was very lonesome, but I kept saying, I can't go home for this reason.
Yes. Oh, didn't a gentleman come into your life? I mean, a Navy pilot? Is that not true?
He wasn't a pilot, but he was in the Navy with my brother. My brother brought him home, and yes, this is very strange. I told him, we used to write to each other, and I wrote and told him I was going to be a sister and that I was entering on June 24th. And he got a leave to come so he would be there. And I thought, what else could happen? But he actually came with me to Adrian.
Oh, my.
But we said goodbye, and I never kept contact with him, but he kept contact with my brother because they were both in the Navy. And my brother died in '92, and in December, on a feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, actually. And his wife, his name was Clark, his wife died in January or February. And so I thought, I would write and tell him.
Sympathy
Sympathy card. And we renewed a friendship And that friendship lasted till he died in 2013.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Quite,
so.
quite lovely.
Was different kind of revenge.
Yes, 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 yes. And you're very fortunate to have so many of sisters in your crowd that entered at the same time.
51, well, I think it was 74 of us who entered, but who made, became novices. There were 51 of us, and there were 51 of us when we ended with our as novices and made first profession. And so we were always called the famous 51 because we had 6 months of Sister Edmund and 6 months of
Sister
CJ,
Patrick Joe.
Right.
And wasn't our former Sister Jeanne Rayfield part of your
Yes,
group?
yes,
Tell me
yes.
how you keep in touch with her these days.
Well, when I go home to Troy to visit my sister, on the way back, she's in a nursing home in Livonia, and I visit her at the nursing home. And she's in hospice care right now. But I would see her every time I went home. So I see her quite often. And she's doing all right now, but she doesn't eat very much and getting weaker as the days go by.
Didn't a group of you go in to see her this past
Yes.
weekend? Who was that?
Geraldine Brownell and who was the other one that went with me? Ann Beauvais on our crowd because she was in for the weekend.
Was Jeanne happy to see you all?
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. She never stopped talking, which is pretty usual.
Which is Jeanne Rayfield.
But you know, when she was out on where she was at St. Gertrude's, she taught school, she taught catechism, she visited the sick. She was really a minister, really doing what we do. And in fact, the people used to call her Sister Jeanne.
Sister Jeanne.
Sister
Oh, that's
Jeanne.
beautiful. You have a birthday coming up.
Yes.
You're a May Day girl, correct?
I am a May Day girl.
And you'll be 39, I presume.
84.
84. What does your mother tell you about the day of your birth?
Well, it was kind of cold like it has been now in April, and the day before, and she even said they had snow flurries. But on May 31st, I arrived, and it was sunshine outside.
And you have many brothers and sisters besides, don't you?
Four brothers and 3 sisters. There were 8 of us, and 6 of us came in a row, and every year, and then my brother Larry, 5 years, and then my sister Karen. So we're kind of 2 families in a way.
And you keep in touch with your sister in Troy, correct?
Yes, 3 of my brothers have died and 1 sister. And so my sister that's 1 year younger than I, we're very close. In fact, she and I and my other sister Karen are going to go out for a little vacation in May to celebrate our birthdays because Karen is the 22nd of May and I'm the 31st.
Beautiful. I have observed since I've come to know you here on campus that you have been close to several of our sisters who have died this past year, and the gift of your presence in their lives. You were like an angel, Angela. So who were? Refresh my memory. Who were those?
Nancy Fisher, Helen Belcito, Pat Walsh, and Betty Lou Myers, just in 2015.
Wow.
And then we've lost others like Helen Montavani and Marilyn Foster and Veronica.
Oh yeah. Oh my.
And a few others. Oh, Pat Hebert. Yeah,
Oh my. Yes.
Yeah. I
Of
feel
happy
God
memory.
that-
All those women are
and
of
there
happy
more,
memory.
But I just Pat Concier.
Oh yes.
Pat Concier.
Yes. And who is it that's here on campus from your crowd?
Pat Dolan, Pat Spangler, Robert Irene, Jane Robert, Helen Lair, Mary Alice Nauer, Mary Catherine Nolan, and myself.
The famous 51?
So there are 9 of us here.
9. That's beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
I might be missing someone, but I think that's it.
What brings you the most joy these days?
I think kind of visiting those that I know, like last night I visited Pat Dolan, and she just gets a big smile when I go in there, and she held my hand, would not let go of it yesterday, and that was a half hour, and we didn't say much because she doesn't talk a lot, very little in fact, and it's hard to understand, but she just seemed so happy to have somebody visit her, and
Familiar face.
that's right.
Right.
That's right.
We never know what memories come back
That's right.
because of that connection. Before we leave, I would love to know who has been the most fascinating or interesting person that has crossed your path these many years as an Adrian Dominican. Sister David Ann.
I didn't know David Mary.
David Mary.
David Mary. In the congregation?
Anywhere.
Anywhere. Well, you know who, I always have to say my mother's the first one.
Yes, yes.
She's the one who helped me become who I am.
Yeah. Formed you.
And formed me. But I think that Freddy Brandon,
Say that again.
actually Freddy Brandon
Oh.
is one of those that has inspired me to really understand people of color, because he was one that was honest, and probably the most honest man I know, and kind, and full of wanting justice for people, wanting justice for the people of color. Actually, he and his students in his class used to go to a theater in Tunica, and they had to sit upstairs. And one day they decided they're not going to sit upstairs anymore. Went downstairs, and they closed the theater because of that. And he also was, I'll use the word blackballed, which is not so good for here, but when he was working, because he wanted justice for the workers, and he could not get a job in Tunica because he stood up for the rights of the workers. And we hired him, and he was our person doing transportation.
A gift to you and a gift to so many others.
He was.
Now,
And
is. So after 31 years, is there a statue of you at the at the
Oh, I don't know. I think some were glad I left.
I can't believe that.
challenged a little bit of racism in town.
I
did.
can't believe that. Well, thank you for your time today. This has
You're
been
welcome.
delightful, Angela. God bless you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you having me.